Ladies and gentlemen, champions in the making, listen to me closely. Your future is begging you to show up. Not once, not when you feel like it, not when the stars align, every single day. If you want extraordinary results, then you must develop an extraordinary level of consistency. And let me tell you something, consistency is not a gift, it's a decision. It's a war you win within yourself. Your future is begging you to show up every single day, not once a week, not when you're inspired, not when it's convenient, every single day, because the life you dream about, the vision you see in your mind, the legacy you want to leave, it's real, it's waiting, but it's only waiting for one thing, for you to become consistent enough to claim it. Your future doesn't respond to your feelings, it responds to your pattern. It responds to your habits. And until you learn to show up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, your future will keep its distance, because greatness cannot exist in inconsistency. You see, we've been sold the lie that you need to feel ready to take action, but nothing could be further from the truth. If you only work on the days you feel like it, you'll never get momentum. You'll stay stuck in a cycle of starting and stopping, excited and discouraged, passionate and passive. That's not how results are built. That's how regret is built. Your future is begging you to break free from the cycle of inconsistency. It's begging you to stop negotiating with your excuses. It's not looking for perfection, it's looking for presence. Show up. Every time you choose to hit the snooze button on your purpose, you delay the arrival of your destiny. Every time you skip the work, every time you promise yourself tomorrow, you push back the very things you say you want. And the most dangerous part is, you don't always feel the pain of delay right away. It's silent, it's subtle, but over time it builds, it compounds. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and months become years. Before you know it, you're watching someone else live a life you were supposed to build, all because you didn't show up when it mattered. There is no shortcut. There is no secret sauce. There is no perfect time. The people who succeed didn't have an easier path. They had the same hours in a day. They had distractions, doubts, and setbacks too. The difference? They made a decision to show up, especially on the days when it was easier not to, a decision to be reliable with their gift, a decision to trust the process even when the progress felt slow, a decision to stop flirting with potential and start demanding results from themselves. Your future is watching to see if you'll make that same decision. You can't afford to live in a rhythm of inconsistency and expect consistent rewards. Life doesn't work that way. You harvest in public what you've planted in private. The habits you choose when no one's watching, the effort you put in when applause is absent, that's what builds your future. Not hype, not hope, discipline, repetition, grit. That's what shapes you into the person capable of handling the blessing you've been praying for. The version of you who gets the life you want doesn't show up sometimes. They show up all the time. Think about it. Everything worthwhile demands consistency. Relationships thrive on consistency. Health improves with consistency. Wealth grows with consistency. Wisdom increases through consistent learning. Yet somehow, when it comes to our dreams, we treat them like a side hustle we get to when we feel it. That's why so many stay stuck. They treat purpose like a hobby instead of a responsibility. But your future doesn't operate on feelings. It operates on faith. Faith that shows up in action. Faith that keeps going. Faith that says, even if I don't see the results today, I trust that today's discipline is building tomorrow's breakthrough. The future version of you, the one with the income you desire, the peace you crave, the influence you envision, is not far off. It's closer than you think. But it's waiting on your consistency to unlock it. It's waiting on you to stop stopping, to stop making promises to yourself that you keep breaking, to stop relying on hype and start relying on structure. It's waiting on you to build discipline that's stronger than distraction, habits that are louder than hesitation, and a work ethic that doesn't rely on emotion. Every day you wake up, you're faced with a choice: show up or shrink back, build or break, advance or delay. And every day you choose to show up, even when it's messy, even when it's slow, even when no one notices, you're proving to your future that you're ready. Not someday, not when it's easy, but now, right now. Because your future is not waiting for the perfect version of you. It's just waiting for the consistent one. Consistency is not a gift, it's a decision, a discipline, a lifestyle. It doesn't come wrapped in talent or handed down from some special lineage. It's not something you're born with, it's something you choose every day, in the silence, in the repetition, in the moments when it would be easier to do something else. When people look at someone who's successful and say they're just built different, what they often fail to recognize is that what really sets that person apart is their decision to be consistent, even when no one was watching, even when no one believed in them, even when there was no reward in sight. It's easy to be excited at the beginning. It's easy to commit when the vision is fresh and the motivation is high, but consistency isn't proven at the starting line, it's revealed in the middle. The boring, ordinary, grinded out middle, where progress is slow, feedback is minimal, and distractions are plenty. That's where the decision is made. The decision to show up regardless of the mood, the decision to stick to the plan even when results are invisible. That decision has to become part of your DNA, because if you only work when it's exciting, you'll never build anything that lasts. Consistency is a discipline because it demands structure. It requires you to master your emotions instead of being mastered by them. Discipline doesn't ask you how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired or uninspired. Discipline says, we have work to do. And when that discipline becomes part of your character, consistency becomes natural, not easy, not effortless, but natural, because you've trained yourself to stay the course no matter what. And that kind of training, that level of commitment, is what elevates ordinary people into extraordinary performers. It's a lifestyle because it has to touch every part of who you are. You can't compartmentalize consistency. You can't just be consistent in one area and expect to excel in all others. How you do anything is how you do everything. If you cut corners in your routines, you'll start cutting corners in your values. If you're inconsistent with your time, you'll be inconsistent with your integrity. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about integrity. It's about becoming the kind of person who keeps promises, especially the ones you make to yourself. This lifestyle of consistency is uncomfortable at first. It challenges your habits, stretches your patience, and exposes your weaknesses. But the discomfort is a gift because it's teaching you how to be reliable under pressure. It's teaching you how to keep showing up even when progress feels painfully slow. It's in those moments that your character is forged. Most people quit during the stretch, but those who embrace it come out refined, stronger, and ready for the weight of success they're building towards. Don't confuse excitement with consistency. Anyone can be excited for a week. Anyone can post their goals, talk a big game, and ride the motivational high. But consistency is what happens after the excitement fades. It's what keeps you moving when the claps stop, when the room is empty, and when it's just you versus the work. That's the real test. And most people fail that test, not because they lack potential, but because they never made the decision to show up daily, regardless of how they felt. You don't need more motivation, you need more commitment. You need a reason so solid, so deep that it pulls you through the tough days. That's where consistency thrives, in the soil of commitment. And like anything worth having, it grows slowly, quietly, but steadily. And the beauty of consistency is that it compounds. What feels small today becomes unstoppable tomorrow. It builds momentum, and momentum builds transformation. But it all starts with the decision, a daily, deliberate choice to keep going. So when you look in the mirror and ask yourself what it's going to take to become the person you're meant to be, understand this. It's not about being gifted. It's not about luck. It's not about waiting for the right opportunity. It's about stepping into discipline. It's about crafting a lifestyle that reflects your purpose. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when it's not convenient, even when it's not glamorous, even when nobody else understands why you're still going. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. Goals are inspiring. They look good on paper. They sound powerful when spoken out loud. They give us a sense of direction, a glimpse of what could be. But goals by themselves are not enough. They are the destination, not the vehicle. The truth is, when pressure hits, when distractions come, when adversity shows up, and it always will, you won't perform at the level of your ambition. You'll default to your habits, your expectations of yourself, your daily non-negotiables. That's what standards are. And your standards are the true foundation of your results. Most people set big goals with low standards. They say they want success, but their standards tolerate procrastination. They want wealth, but they allow themselves to skip discipline. They want influence, but their standards don't demand consistency. So when the challenges come, they crumble, not because the goal wasn't possible, but because the internal foundation wasn't strong enough to carry the weight of the dream. What they fail to realize is that the standard you set in private always reveals itself in public. If you don't demand more from yourself when no one is watching, you will always underdeliver when the pressure is on. Goals are exciting. Standards are uncomfortable. Goals are future-focused. Standards are rooted in the now. They require you to raise the bar, not just for what you want, but for what you will no longer tolerate. Your standards decide how you speak to yourself, how you spend your time, how you respond to failure, and how you handle success. Every choice, every habit, every routine, it all flows from the invisible line you've drawn that says, this is who I am, this is what I accept, and this is what I don't. When your standards are low, your life will reflect it no matter how big your dreams are. If you accept mediocrity in your work, you will never produce excellence. If you allow excuses in your routine, you'll never see consistency. If your standard is just enough to get by, you will always live just under your potential. But when your standards rise, everything else must rise to match them. You begin to move differently, think differently, work differently, not because someone is watching, but because you've raised the internal bar on what is acceptable from yourself. You can tell a lot about someone's standards by what they allow themselves to repeat. If you consistently skip the gym, that's not a motivation issue, it's a standard issue. If you constantly give up halfway through your goals, it's not about ability, it's about what you're willing to tolerate from yourself. The most successful people in the world didn't get there by accident. They got there by demanding more from themselves long before life did. They built internal boundaries that said, this is how I live, no matter what. Raising your standards means breaking up with your comfort zone. It means refusing to give energy to things that drain you. It means saying no to distractions that used to steal your time. It means aligning your behavior with your values, not your mood. Because moods change, emotions fluctuate, but standards, when locked in place, they become the compass that keeps you on course even when storms hit. You don't need to feel your best to act your best. You just need to commit to your standard and let that guide you. Think about the best version of yourself, the one crushing it in business and health and purpose. That version isn't fueled by occasional motivation. That version operates under a system of elevated standards. They don't entertain inconsistency. They don't let laziness linger. They don't allow circumstances to decide their work ethic. Their life looks different, not because they had a bigger vision, but because they made a bigger demand of themselves in the small, unseen moments. So before you set another goal, ask yourself a deeper question. What are my standards right now? What do I allow in my daily habits? What do I tolerate in my discipline? Because no matter how high you dream, you will always live according to what you truly expect from yourself. Not what you hope for, not what you talk about, but what your standards require, what your actions prove, and what your character reflects when no one else is watching. Motivation sparks the fire, but consistency keeps it burning. It's that initial push of energy, that flash of inspiration, that surge of belief that gets you moving. Motivation is powerful. It can awaken a desire buried deep inside of you, remind you of your potential, and make you believe that change is possible. It's like striking a match in a dark room. For a moment, the flame lights everything up. It makes the dream feel alive, the goal feel reachable, and the grind feel exciting. But a match alone can't heat a house. A spark alone can't sustain the flame. What matters is what happens after the spark. People get caught chasing the feeling of motivation, thinking they need to stay inspired in order to keep going. They start strong, but when the motivation fades, and it always does, they slow down, back off, and eventually stop. That's because they built their drive on emotion instead of commitment. They relied on energy rather than discipline. But real results don't come from temporary emotion. They come from daily decisions. The fire of achievement doesn't stay lit because you feel like tending it. It stays lit because you choose to show up and keep feeding it every single day, regardless of how you feel. Motivation is like the honeymoon phase of personal growth. It feels amazing. Everything seems possible, and there's a buzz in the air, but that phase always ends. Life gets busy. Obstacles appear. The work becomes repetitive, and if you haven't built consistency into your system, you'll fall off the path. The people who reach the highest levels of success are not the ones who were the most motivated in the beginning. They are the ones who became masters at doing what needed to be done long after the feeling of motivation disappeared. Consistency doesn't depend on inspiration. It depends on values, on standards, on a personal code that says, this is who I am and this is what I do no matter what. That's how the fire keeps burning. Not because you're always hyped up, but because you've made consistency your identity. You no longer wait for permission from your emotions. You no longer need perfect conditions. You move with purpose, whether it's raining or sunny, whether you're celebrated or ignored, whether you're tired or energized. That's how the fire turns from a flicker into a blaze. It's easy to show up once. It's harder to show up daily. But it's in that daily showing up, those repetitive, often boring, unsexy tasks, that greatness is built. The gym sessions when you're sore. The early mornings when you'd rather sleep. The writing, the calls, the studying, the praying, the practice, done over and over again until it becomes who you are. That's the kind of consistency that builds momentum. And momentum is what transforms effort into excellence. People admire those who are consistent because deep down they know how rare it is. Consistency requires character. It requires self-respect. It requires you to keep promises to yourself even when no one else is holding you accountable. Motivation can come from others, from a quote, a video, a coach, but consistency is self-generated. It's internal. It's you deciding again and again that your future matters enough to keep doing the work, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when it's lonely. When you look at the people who have built something meaningful, whether it's a business, a career, a body, a family, or a life of purpose, you're not seeing someone who was constantly motivated. You're seeing someone who refused to quit, someone who chose to keep showing up, someone who stacked days on top of days, work on top of work, until the result became undeniable. Their fire didn't stay lit because the wind never blew. It stayed lit because they learned how to shield it, feed it, and protect it through action. So while motivation may get you out of bed one morning, it's consistency that will keep you moving year after year. Motivation starts the journey, but only consistency finishes it. The spark matters, but if you don't turn it into a steady burn through discipline and commitment, it will fade just as quickly as it came. The people winning aren't more talented, they're more consistent. Talent may open the door, but it's consistency that keeps you in the room. Natural ability might give you a head start, but it's not the deciding factor. The world is full of talented people who never went anywhere because they never learned how to show up when it wasn't exciting. They never built the muscle of discipline, the habit of repetition, the grit to keep going when it got hard. Talent may get you noticed, but consistency is what builds trust, delivers results, and forges mastery. The winners understand this, and they live it every day. We love to romanticize talent. We're drawn to the idea that someone just has it, that they're blessed, chosen, gifted in a way we're not. But that's just a convenient excuse. It lets us off the hook. It gives us a reason not to try as hard, not to commit fully. But if you look closer, most of the people at the top of their game weren't always the most gifted. They just refused to stop. They made a decision early on that they were going to outlast the competition by being relentless, by being dependable, by doing the work day after day after day. Consistency is a multiplier. It turns small efforts into major results over time. It doesn't always look impressive in the moment. In fact, it often looks boring. It's the daily grind, the early mornings, the late nights, the reps, the edits, the outreach, the calls, the discipline behind the scenes that nobody claps for. That's the difference maker. Not the highlight reel, not the flash of brilliance, but the long-term dedication to the basics. The winners know that the process doesn't have to be glamorous to be effective. It just has to be repeated. What's dangerous about talent is that it can make people lazy. When things come easily, there's no urgency to grow. But when you don't have that natural edge, you're forced to develop other muscles, discipline, perseverance, strategy. And often those muscles outlast talent over time. That's why some of the greatest stories of success aren't about the most talented person in the room. They're about the one who kept showing up, learning, adjusting, and getting better every single day. Consistency builds a kind of resilience that talent alone never will. You don't have to be the smartest, the fastest, or the most creative to win. You just have to be the most committed, the one who doesn't quit when it gets hard, the one who does the work when no one's watching, the one who trains when others are sleeping, learns when others are distracted, and executes when others are still planning. Consistency beats brilliance when brilliance doesn't show up. The marketplace doesn't reward potential, it rewards execution. And execution only lives in the house that consistency built. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you begin to separate yourself, not overnight, but over time. You start to build trust with yourself, with others, and with the process. You start to collect wins, not because you did something extraordinary once, but because you did something effective thousands of times. Those small wins compound, they add up. And suddenly you look up one day and realize you've become the person others now call talented. But it wasn't talent that got you there. It was your ability to keep going. The truth is, people don't succeed because everything always went right. They succeed because they kept showing up, especially when things went wrong, especially when they failed, when they got tired, when the path got lonely. That kind of consistency builds character. It builds mental toughness. It builds a foundation that doesn't crumble under pressure. The people who win have just made a decision, no matter how they feel, no matter how slow the progress, they will continue. And that decision is more powerful than any natural gift. So when you see someone outpacing you, don't automatically assume they're more talented. Ask yourself how consistent they've been. How often did they show up when you stayed still? How many reps did they do behind closed doors that you never saw? Because in the end, it's not about who has the most potential. It's about who makes the most of their time, their focus, their energy. And the people who do that the best are almost always the ones who simply refuse to stop. Force yourself to show up when it's hard, when it's boring, when no one's clapping. That's the moment where the real growth lives. Not in the highlight reels or applause, not in the Instagram captions or public celebrations, but in the quiet, lonely corners of your life where it's just you versus your excuses. Anyone can show up when it's easy, when momentum is high and support is everywhere, but the ones who truly elevate, who break barriers and become unshakable, those are the ones who force themselves to show up when everything in them says not to. There's something powerful about pushing through resistance, not because you feel strong, but because you've decided to be. Showing up when it's hard requires you to tap into something deeper than motivation. It forces you to look beyond the discomfort and reconnect with your purpose. You stop negotiating with your feelings and start operating from your convictions. You say, I don't care how I feel right now. This is who I said I would be. And every time you do that, you add another brick to the foundation of the person you're becoming. When things get boring, that's when most people bail. They think boredom is a sign to stop. But in reality, boredom is a sign you're getting close to mastery. It means you've moved past the hype and into the discipline. Anyone can chase novelty, but it takes strength to stay committed in the mundane. Greatness is built in repetition, in doing the same work over and over with excellence, in refusing to slack just because the process lost its shine. If you can be consistent in the boring, you can be unstoppable in the breakthrough. And what about when no one's clapping? That's the truest test. Can you still grind when no one sees you? Can you still pursue excellence when the likes are gone and the applause is silent? Because there will be seasons when nobody understands what you're doing, seasons when your effort isn't validated, when your results are slow, when you feel invisible. But that's the exact moment where champions are made. That's when you prove you're not in it for attention, you're in it for transformation. It's in those quiet moments that your confidence is built. Not the loud, hyped up kind of confidence, but the kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself, from knowing you've done the work even when it was thankless. That's the kind of self-respect that can't be shaken by criticism or lack of recognition. You begin to realize that showing up, especially when it's hard, is not just a task, it's a declaration of who you are. It's a message to your future self that says, I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere. Sometimes you won't feel like the work is working. You'll show up again and again and wonder if it even matters. But that's a trap. Believing that results should be instant. Growth rarely announces itself. It happens in silence, underneath the surface, in the daily decisions to keep going. Just because you don't see it yet doesn't mean it's not happening. Every rep, every step, every moment you force yourself to show up is stacking something inside of you, something strong, something stable, something permanent. And yes, forcing yourself to show up isn't glamorous. It doesn't always look heroic, but it is powerful. It's gritty. It's brave because it takes courage to be consistent without validation. It takes character to stay in the game when it feels like you're the only one playing. And it takes faith in your process, faith in your purpose, faith in the unseen results that are still unfolding. That's the part most people will never see, but it's also the part that matters the most. So when it's hard, when it's boring, when the room is silent and the rewards haven't arrived, show up anyway. Show up because you said you would. Show up because the version of you you're building demands it. Show up not for the world's recognition, but for your own evolution, because the discipline of showing up, especially in those moments, is exactly what separates those who dream from those who do. Repetition creates mastery. Mastery creates results. It's not the grand gestures that lead to excellence. It's the small, repeated actions done with focus, intention, and consistency. Success doesn't come from doing something once and expecting a breakthrough. It comes from doing it over and over again until it becomes second nature, until your mind, body, and spirit are in sync with the rhythm of discipline. Repetition refines, it sharpens, it exposes weakness and reveals strength. It strips away the fluff and leaves behind the truth of who you really are and how badly you want it. Every skill, every transformation, every major leap forward in life is built on repetition. Think about athletes, musicians, writers, entrepreneurs, the best in any field. They didn't become world class because they tried something a few times and moved on. They became great because they repeated the fundamentals until they could perform them without thinking, until they became part of their identity. Repetition isn't glamorous, but it's the bridge between knowing what to do and becoming someone who does it flawlessly, even under pressure. Mastery isn't a gift, it's a consequence. It's the natural result of repetition combined with intention. You can't master what you occasionally touch. You master what you live in, what you practice daily, what you commit to improving even when you're already good. Mastery means owning the process so completely that your actions begin to produce predictable outcomes. You don't just hope it will work, you know it will because you've put in the hours, the effort, and the energy to understand every detail of your craft or calling. And once you reach mastery, results become inevitable. Not because you're lucky, but because you're prepared, because you paid the price in advance. You've done the reps, you've endured the monotony, you've stayed when others quit. Results are never random. They are the fruit of roots planted in repetition. You can't reap what you haven't sown. You can't expect excellence without repetition. And you can't expect consistent outcomes without becoming someone who lives in consistent action. The truth is, most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they refuse to repeat. They get bored with the basics. They jump from one thing to the next, chasing new tactics instead of mastering timeless principles. But the basics done well and done often will outperform flashy tricks every single time. Repetition teaches patience, discipline, humility. It forces you to sit in the uncomfortable space between desire and results and ask yourself, am I really built for this? There's power in doing the same thing with greater depth each time. Repetition isn't about mindless loops. It's about intentional refinement. Each time you repeat, you learn something new. You adjust, you fine-tune, you develop nuance. And over time, what once felt foreign becomes fluid. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. Repetition doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. It transforms effort into excellence and talent into skill. When you commit to repetition, you free yourself from the myth of overnight success. You stop needing constant motivation because you understand that mastery is a long game. You become focused not just on what you're doing today, but on who you're becoming through the process. Repetition allows you to build momentum that compound. Every rep is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming, the kind who finishes what they start, the kind who dominates in silence, the kind who delivers results that can't be ignored. And it all starts with the willingness to repeat, to show up again, to do the work again, to fall, learn, and get back up again. Repetition builds muscle, mental and emotional. It's the training ground where resilience is born and champions are forged. While others chase the next shortcut, you stay on the path doing the reps that no one wants to do. And that's where mastery is made, in the repetition, in the refinement, in the relentless pursuit of better. Breakthrough doesn't come before consistency, it comes because of it. Everyone wants the sudden moment where everything changes, where the doors swing open and the results explode. But what most people miss is that every breakthrough is built on layers of ordinary, unseen, repetitive effort. You don't just stumble into greatness, you grow into it. And the growth is slow, it's quiet, it's not always obvious, but it's happening. One consistent action at a time, stacking day over day, pushing you closer to that moment when everything finally clicks. People crave transformation, but resist the process that produces it. They want the outcome without the discipline. They want the reward without the repetition. But life doesn't work like that. The process is the price. You want a breakthrough in your business? Show up and build every single day. You want to break through in your health? Eat clean and train when it's hard. You want to break through in your mindset? Read, reflect, and battle your inner critic every morning. You don't get to skip the reps and still expect a result. Consistency is the soil where breakthrough grows. The frustrating part is that consistency often feels like it's not working. You keep going, but nothing seems to change. You put in the hours, but progress feels invisible. That's when most people quit, right before the shift happens, because they were looking for instant gratification, not long-term payoff. But consistency isn't about instant proof. It's about compounded progress. It's about trusting that the seeds you're planting today will eventually bloom, even if you don't see them sprouting yet. The roots grow first, underground, unseen, just like your breakthrough. Breakthrough doesn't announce itself ahead of time. It doesn't send a text saying it's on the way. It shows up in the middle of your routine. It interrupts your discipline with reward. One day you'll be doing what you've done 100 times and something clicks. You're stronger, sharper, better. Suddenly the work that used to feel heavy feels natural. The path that used to feel uncertain now looks clear. But that moment wasn't magic. It was earned. It was created by showing up over and over, long before the payoff arrived. People like to point to the moment of success and call it the breakthrough, but the real breakthrough happened months or even years earlier when you made the decision to stay consistent, when you kept going without applause, when you kept building without visible progress. That's the real moment things shifted, even if no one saw it. The external change only happened because of the internal shift that came from consistency. Your character grew, your capacity expanded, you became the kind of person who could handle the success when it arrived. Consistency is a test. It reveals who's serious and who's just interested. It separates the dabblers from the doers, the ones who make a little noise and fade versus the ones who quietly build something unshakable. If you can stay consistent long enough, breakthrough becomes inevitable. Not because you're lucky, but because you've aligned yourself with the laws of growth. The universe doesn't reward effort alone. It rewards sustained effort, focused effort, repeated effort, the kind that compounds in the background and pays dividends when you least expect it. You don't get to decide exactly when your breakthrough happens, but you do get to decide whether you're doing the work that invites it. You get to choose if you're showing up on the days when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's lonely. Because every rep is a brick. Every day you stick with it, you're building something. And eventually, the wall is tall enough for others to see. That's when they call it a breakthrough. But you'll know better. You'll know it was built in the dark through consistency. The danger is waiting for a breakthrough to start being consistent. That's backwards. You don't wait until results show up to commit. You commit first. You decide that no matter how long it takes, you will outlast the delay. You will keep showing up because you trust the process more than your emotions. And in doing so, you become the kind of person who attracts breakthroughs not by chance, but by choice. Not by luck, but by loyalty to the work. You don't need more time, you need a stronger commitment. Time is not the obstacle. It's how you choose to use the time you already have. We all get the same 24 hours in a day, yet some people seem to accomplish so much more. It's not because they have extra time on their side, but because they have prioritized their commitment to their goals. They've made the decision to dedicate their time to what matters most. Time is the canvas, your commitment is the brush. Without the commitment, even a lifetime wouldn't be enough. The truth is, we often tell ourselves we need more time to get things done, but what we really need is to be more committed to the things that truly matter. You have enough time to build your dreams, but only if you're willing to let go of distractions and focus on the long-term vision. If your commitment is strong enough, you'll find ways to make time for what matters even when your schedule is packed. It's not about having more time, it's about becoming more intentional with how you spend it. Most people don't lack time, they lack discipline. They lack the ability to say no to distractions, to put in the consistent effort, and to maintain focus when things get tough. It's easy to get sidetracked by a million small things that don't contribute to your bigger vision. But the people who succeed, who push through and break through, aren't the ones with the most time. They're the ones who are most committed to their mission. They set boundaries around their time, defend it fiercely, and use every moment to advance toward their goals. Commitment is the difference between wishing and doing. It's the decision to stay in the game even when it's not fun. It's the fire that keeps you going when the motivation fades. Everyone starts with excitement, but excitement is fleeting. It's commitment that turns excitement into results. It's commitment that makes you show up even when the road is rough, even when you don't see immediate results. Without that commitment, you'll always be at the mercy of circumstances, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. The reality is that when you make a stronger commitment, you start finding time you never knew you had. You start to eliminate the noise and distractions that clutter your day. You begin to focus on what really matters, what will actually bring you closer to your goals. You realize that the time you thought you lacked was never the issue. The issue was that your commitment wasn't strong enough to make the time you had work in your favor. When you commit, time bends to your will. Commitment isn't just about showing up. It's about showing up with intention, with purpose. It's about saying, this is what matters to me, and I will make time for it no matter how busy life gets. It's about prioritizing your goals above short-term pleasures, distractions, and instant gratification. Real commitment means making hard choices in the moment and sacrificing what feels good in the short term for the long-term gain. It's this kind of commitment that builds success, not more time, but the will to use time wisely and purposefully. When you are truly committed, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop blaming the clock, the circumstances, or the obstacles. You take full responsibility for the time you have and use it in the most effective way possible. You realize that success doesn't require more hours. It requires the ability to stay focused, to eliminate time-wasting habits, and to dedicate yourself fully to the process. This is where breakthroughs happen, when your commitment outshines the distractions around you and you create results out of the time you already have. You don't need more time. You need a stronger commitment to what you say matters. When you make that commitment, you'll see how much more you can accomplish. You'll discover the power of focus, of dedication, and of the relentless pursuit of your goals. Time will no longer be your enemy. Instead, it will be your ally, working for you as you step into the full potential of your commitment. Discipline is the door. Consistency is the key. Destiny is on the other side. Too many people spend their lives wishing for success, waiting for an opportunity to appear, or hoping that things will magically fall into place. But success doesn't come by chance. It comes through conscious effort, deliberate action, and the ability to stay committed day after day, even when things aren't going as planned. Discipline is the first step in the process. Without discipline, you never get to open the door. Without it, there's no path to walk through. Discipline is the foundation that supports everything you hope to achieve. It's the internal decision to show up, to do the work, and to stay focused. Discipline is what forces you to act even when you don't feel like it. It's the decision to prioritize long-term goals over short-term comfort, to push through fatigue, and to choose the grind over the easy way out. Without discipline, you never build the habits or mindset necessary for success. But once you've developed the discipline to take action, the next step is to stay with it consistently. Consistency is the key that unlocks the door of discipline. It's the repetition of the right actions over time, even when there are no immediate rewards. Consistency is what separates the dreamers from the achievers. Anyone can have a burst of motivation. Anyone can work hard for a short period of time. But it's consistency that sustains the effort. It's the ability to keep going even when the novelty fades, when the motivation dips, and when the journey feels long. Consistency ensures that the work doesn't stop. It transforms discipline from a one-time decision into a continuous cycle of action. Through consistency, the work you put in every day starts to compound. At first, the results may seem invisible. You might put in hours of effort and wonder if it's even making a difference. But consistency doesn't require immediate recognition. It doesn't need instant feedback. It just needs you to keep showing up. Over time, the small actions you take every day begin to add up. They start to build momentum. Progress becomes inevitable, and success starts to feel less like a dream and more like a reality. But while discipline and consistency are crucial, it's easy to overlook the most important part of the equation: destiny. Destiny isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create through the consistent decisions you make. When you choose to discipline yourself, when you make the commitment to show up day after day, you are actively crafting your future. Every step you take towards your goal is a step towards your destiny. It's the result of your discipline and the power of consistency at work, aligning to bring you to where you're meant to be. The door of discipline opens the path to endless opportunities. Once you've walked through it, consistency is the key that ensures you stay on the right track. It's what allows you to keep going when others drop out. It's what makes sure that no matter how tough things get, you keep moving forward, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Destiny doesn't happen by accident. It's shaped by every decision, every action, and every moment of commitment you make. And it's on the other side of discipline and consistency. The longer you stay disciplined and consistent, the clearer your path to destiny becomes. There will be obstacles along the way. There will be moments when you want to quit. There will be days when it feels like nothing is happening. But those are the moments when discipline and consistency matter most. When the world tells you to stop, you press on. When the challenge seems insurmountable, you dig deeper. That's when the key of consistency proves its worth. It doesn't promise smooth sailing, but it guarantees that you'll reach your destination if you stay the course. Your destiny is waiting for you, but it's not handed to you on a silver platter. It's earned one disciplined choice at a time and unlocked through the consistency of your actions. The door to greatness, to fulfillment, and to your highest potential is always open, but it requires you to step through it. The key to the other side is simple. Be disciplined enough to start and consistent enough to keep going. Keep showing up, keep doing the work, and soon you'll look up and find yourself exactly where you always dreamed you could be.